Morning, folks. As the title says, another weekend, another record fair. Well, as I said before, around here we don't have record shops really. We have, I think, four in the whole county, and this is the third biggest county, I think, in the country. And two of those are very expensive HMVs. So we're reliant on record fairs. I remember the bad old days when probably go to two in a year. Now they come thick and fast. Anyway, yesterday was the Kendal Record Fair, so a friend and I went there, and I managed to pick up this lot. I think there's 9 LPs here. I was quite pleased with what I got. So, as it was only yesterday, I haven't had a chance to clean and play these yet. But let's get them shown. First up is a very famous album. We're starting with the stuff from the cheap bins, and this is Switched on Bach by Walter Carlos, or Wendy Carlos as she's now known. As I said, very famous album, very important in the development, I think, of electronic music. This was released, I think, it's on CBS and was released in 1968. And as the title implies, it's all reworkings of Bach music played on a Moog synthesizer. I know it's Moog, but I've said Moog all my life, so too used to it. So yeah, don't think I've ever actually heard this album. I might have heard a piece or two from it over the years, but like I said, it's a very important album. I'm looking forward to giving it a spin. Next up, I managed to find this album by Laboratorium, or The Laboratory, with their album Quasimodo. This is their third album. I managed to, a few years back, find their first album. They're a jazz rock jazz fusion band. That was very good. So I was quite surprised to find this yesterday, to be fair. This is in the Polish Jazz series on the Musa label. I said I enjoyed the first album. I expect to enjoy this. This, as I said, is the third album from, I think, 1979. I won't attempt to say the names of the musicians, but you get a keyboard player who plays acoustic piano, Rhodes piano, and ARP Odyssey. And I think he's the general musician that a lot of the music revolves around. You get a saxophonist who plays alto and soprano and also provides some vocals. A guitarist who plays acoustic and electric guitar, bass guitar, and then drums and percussion. So yeah, I've got another couple of albums in this Polish jazz series. This is actually volume 58, so you can see how many there were. It seems that series covered all types of jazz, but there's some decent stuff in there. So, good stuff. Moving on with the next few albums to folk music, and an album by John Kirkpatrick and Sue Harris, The Rose of Britain's Isle. This is on topic from 1974. John Kirkpatrick, obviously the premier accordion, melodeon, concertina player of probably the generation. Played briefly in Steel Eye Span for one studio album and one live album. Was with Richard Thompson's band for years. Excellent player. And this is one of his early albums with his musical partner. I don't know if they were partners otherwise, but Sue Harris, who provides vocals and oboe. So it's a weird combination, that melodeon, concertina, accordion with oboe. Obviously, this is all traditional folk material, I think. I've got a couple of other albums by them, and they're very good. As I said, sticking with folk albums, I next picked up two albums by the great Bert Jansch, of the ex of Pentangle. And these are two albums that he recorded, I think, in America back in the 70s. Yes, this one is 74. This is the first one, LA Turnaround. And this was produced by Mike Nesmith of Monkees and First National Band fame. And I remember this one. It's a long time since I've heard both of these. This one is probably the best of the two. I think Nesmith himself plays on here. You get Klaus Voormann on bass. And you get Nesmith as pedal steel player, Red Rhodes on. So this is a mixture of probably that sort of English folk with a bit of more of a country aspect to it, American country rock aspect. But I remember this being an excellent album. The other album that he did, probably I think the following year or so, was this one, which is Santa Barbara Honeymoon. This one, as I remember it, not being as good as LA Turnaround, in that I remember it being very, overproduced is probably maybe the term I'm looking for. Nesmith is not producing at this point. I think it's what's his name? Danny Lane, who was the drummer on that LA Turnaround album, who produces. And like I said, this has got lots of backing vocals, steel drums, brass, keyboards, including synths. So yeah, it's not quite as good. It's not as good as LA Turnaround, but a decent album. The one thing I did notice when I picked up this yesterday is it should have come with a bonus CD with about half a dozen extra tracks, most of them live at Montreux in 1975. But there doesn't seem to be the CD. Oh well, never mind. It wasn't that expensive. Both of these were reissues on the Earth Records label that came out, I think, about 2018. And from one giant of the folk scene to another, we have the great Roy Harper. And this is his, I think, 2013 album, Man and Myth. Excuse me. I think this was his first album for about 12 years, something like that. And I think to date, this is his last album. This is a 3-sided double album. It's got a great reputation, but I've never heard it before. I really need Mr. Ison to tell me whether this is a good one or not. But it's right. It's bound to be good. There's a whole lot of players on here, most of whom I don't know, but I do see that Pete Townsend plays acoustic rhythm and electric lead guitar on one track. So I'm expecting great things from this one. And still with music with a with a folk bent. I might have mentioned on a previous Kendal record fair video that there was a guy there 2 record fairs ago, but he wasn't there last time, who was selling a whole bunch of sealed reissues of classic albums that have come out in Europe. He also had loads of sort of bootleg and radio show style releases that you get these days. A lot of them looked interesting, but you never know with those. I've had some bad experiences. I bought I think that the last Kendal Record Fair, I bought a double Fairport Convention album, and it looks brilliant, packaging and everything, but to be honest, the sound quality is poor. From the original recording, not from the pressing. So you never know what you're getting. But these last 4 albums are actual reissues. And first off, we have the album Magic Carpet. And this came out in 1972. This is a reissue on the Life Goes On records. I don't know if that's a bootleg label or a valid label. But this is, as it says here, Magic Carpet were a North London-based group, released their first album in 1972, and I think it's their sole album, which brings together elements of folk and rural psychedelia, together with a strong Middle Eastern flavour. The music of Jim Moyes on electric guitar, Clem Alford on sitar and tambura, Keshav Sather on tabla and percussion, and singer-guitar player Alicia Sufit. Provides a still-standing template for future global beat fusion. I've never heard the album in full. I think I've heard individual tracks on various compilations. I remember them being very good. I remember the fact that the vocalist Alicia having a really excellent sort of folk vocal style. And I like anything with that sort of Middle Eastern flavour with sitar and tablas. So, yeah, I think this is going to be a good one. And like the other week when I went to the Carlisle Record Fair and came away with 3 sealed albums by the same group, ditto this time, but instead of the Groundhogs, this time it's Nirvana. And no, it's not the miserable grunge band that can't stand. No, this is the original Nirvana, the psych pop band from the 60s in the UK. And the 3 albums I came away with are their 3rd, 4th and 5th albums. First off, we have their 3rd album, dedicated to Marcos the third. I should take it out of the cover. All these Nirvana reissues are on the Spanish Wah label. There you go. Might be a bit better. This, I said, is their third album. Some people consider this to be their best. It comes with a 7-inch single with 3 tracks: Love Sweet Take 2, instrumental, June, and We Can Make It Through. As I said, they're a psych pop, symphonic pop sort of band. Baroque pop might even be the term for them. This album is highly related. I think the first 3 albums are generally considered to be their best. You get a lyric sheet with it and a 4-page write-up about the band and the album. I've heard very little Nirvana. I know their early stuff is highly rated. They were basically a 2-piece, really, of Patrick Campbell-Lyons and Alex Spiropoulos. On this occasion, they were backed by Spooky Tooth, who played on many of the tracks. So, if you like Baroque pop, symphonic pop, this is going to be for you. Just put that back in there. We then have their 4th album, and this is quite a different one in style to their previous 3. By this point, the guy Alexis Spiropoulos had left the band, and so basically Nirvana were Patrick Campbell-Lyons with help from a few additional musicians. This album, it goes in a totally different direction, in a harder, more progressive vein. It basically incorporates just 2 tracks: Modus Operandi, Method of Work, and on the second side you get Home, the Home Suite, again side along. In between there's a shorter track, The Saddest Day of My Life. It doesn't get great write-ups, to be fair, from what I've seen, but I'm intrigued. This one originally came out on Vertigo in 1971. Yeah, and reading from the hype sticker, this has been compared as, in quotes, something Frank Zappa could have done. It certainly explored similar boundaries, often moving away from that pop sensitivity that had characterized Nirvana's previous outings. Pianist, keyboardist Patrick Joseph Kelly helped complete the LP, which also featured collaborations by John Field of Jade Warrior, thus offering a harder, freeform prog rock sound to the Nirvana sound. All of these, I think, were a limited edition, 500 copies, by the way. And finally, we have their 5th and I think what was their final album. This is Songs of Love and Praise. And for this, they went, basically Patrick Campbell Lyons went back to the template of the earlier albums, back to a more poppy side vein after the experimentation of the previous album. It says here, Songs of Love and Praise delivered a return to a more classic Nirvana sound, made with a collaboration of Bobby Harrison, early member of Procol Harum and Snafu, Leslie Duncan, Maggie Bell, Sylvia Schuster. It included 2 revisited hits of the band, Rainbow Chaser and Pentecost Hotel, plus original material written for the occasion by Patrick Campbell Lyons. Again, 500 copy limited edition. I think they only did, the album that came after this was a Patrick Campbell Lyons solo album, so he was credited with it, not Nirvana. But even though the last couple of albums were basically him anyway. So yeah, I'm interested to hear these. All I've ever heard really from them is the tracks Rainbow Chaser and Pentecost Hotel, I think. Maybe 1 or 2 others. No. Hopefully, going to be good. Yeah, so that was Kendal yesterday. Pleased with those. I think that's us done for record fairs until May Bank Holiday. Not that long off, only a couple of weeks. Anyway, hope you're all doing well, enjoying the weekend. Take care. See you soon.